Hello friends, welcome to the channel. In this video, we will learn about list comprehension. So let's get started. So list comprehension is a way to create lists from various iterables, such as list tuple, in a concise way with a shorter syntax. Here you can see the syntax to use list comprehension. Now let's see some examples. In the first example, we will find the squares of numbers in a list. So first of all, let's create a list. So let's take this variable num and we will put some numbers in this list. Let's take the numbers as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we need to find the squares of the numbers in this list and store the results in a new list. So let us create a new empty list to store the results. So this is the empty list in which we will store the results. Now we will find the squares of the numbers using a for loop. So let's write the for loop. We will append the squares of the numbers in the newly created empty list. Now let's check the output. Now let us see how we can do the same operation using list comprehension. So we will take another variable in which we will store the list, and now we will use list comprehension. For I in num. And now let's see the results. As you can see, we have completed the same operation using a much shorter syntax compared to a for loop. Now in the second example, we need to create a list which contains number less than 25 using the above list. So we will use this list which we found earlier in example 1, and we will create another list using this list which will contain only numbers which are less than 25. So now let's do this operation using a for loop. So first of all, let's create an empty list to store the results. Now we will write the for loop. So we'll be using this list which we found in the previous example, and now we will write the if condition. So if I is less than 25, we will append the numbers in the empty list. So now let's check the results. So as you can see, this list contains only those numbers which are less than 25. Now let's try to get the same results using list comprehension with a shorter syntax as compared to for loop. So let's take another variable which will store our results from list comprehension. Now we will write the syntax. So for I in this list, if I is less than 25. And now let's check the results. There is a slight error. As you can see, we got the same output, but using a shorter syntax as compared to a for loop. Now moving ahead to the third example, here we have a list of months, as you can see, from January till December. Now what we need to create is, we need to create a list of months which starts with letter A. So let's try this using a for loop first. So let's create an empty list to store the results. Now let's write the for loop. So now we will write the condition. We will use the starts with function, and if the month name starts with A, we will append this to the empty list. Now let's see the results. As you can see, in the original list we have 2 months which starts with letter A, which are April and August. Now let's try to do the same operation using list comprehension. Now let's take another variable. Now let's write the syntax. I for I in the list, which is months, if I starts with letter A. Now let's see the results. As you can see, we got the same results using list comprehension. So now let's see the fourth example. Here we have again the same list with the names of all the months in a year. And now what we have to do is we have to create a list of months which starts with letter A and ends with letter L. So now let's get started using a for loop first. So let's create an empty list first to store the results. Now let's write the for loop. So for I in months, which is our actual list, we will write the condition now. If I starts with A, and we will use the AND operator here, and I ends with L, we will append the month to the empty list. Now let's check the results. As you can see, we have got the month name which starts with A and ends with L, which is April. Now let's try to achieve the same results using list comprehension. So let's take the variable. Let's make a list using list comprehension. I for I in months, if I starts with A and I ends with L. Now let's see the output. As you can see, we got the same output, but in a much easier way using list comprehension. Now moving ahead to the fifth and the last example. So here we have a tuple which has names of few places, and what we have to do is we have to create a list of places ending with letter A from the above tuple. So in all the above examples we have been using a list as a iterable. In this example we are using a tuple as an iterable. So let's get started with a for loop first. Let's create an empty list to store the results. So let's create an empty list to store the results, and now let's write the for loop. Now let's write the condition. If I ends with A, we will append this to the empty list. Now let's check the results. I made a spelling mistake here. As you can see, we got the names of the places ending with alphabet A, which are Patna and Kolkata. Now let's achieve the same output using list comprehension. So now let's create a variable to store the results. Now let's write the list comprehension. For I in places, if I ends with A. Now let's see the output. As you can see, we got the same results using list comprehension which we got using a for loop, but this method looks much cleaner, concise and shorter as compared to the for loop.